Do you ever wonder what your kids think of their Charlotte Mason education? Today we're going to talk with someone who was homeschooled with the Charlotte Mason method and is now an adult and get her thoughts. Welcome to the Simply Charlotte Mason podcast. I'm Sonya Schaefer. The Charlotte Mason method grew over in the United States here in the 1980s and on. So by now, we have had students who have grown up in Charlotte Mason home schools and are now adults. And one of those adults is joining me today, my daughter, Ruth. Good to have you back, Ruth.
Thank you. And I brought my own special guest along today, too.
Yes, Ruth and guest. That's
Yes.
great. We started homeschooling in, 1995, I think it was. And my oldest daughter was going into first grade. You were 3 or 4, somewhere in there. What do you remember about your Charlotte Mason education and what our homeschool was like? I know, now be kind, okay? I was still learning the Charlotte Mason method and implementing it little by little as I learned more and correcting mistakes I was making. But what stands out in your mind were there any things you specifically liked or didn't like, or do you have any remembrance of it at all?
At all. Yeah, I actually, I don't remember a lot from those early years, of course. I do remember how much you were learning and changing and growing in your knowledge of the methods throughout my whole school experience. So
Yeah.
even when I was ready to graduate, I know you were still refining things for my younger sisters. And so in some ways, I know I wasn't a model student, but also you weren't a model teacher maybe
Exactly.
compared to what you know now, and everything you've been able to share and teach paints this beautiful picture. But I know that our reality of schooling was a lot more, we got there eventually.
Yeah.
And all of those good methods you brought in shaped us and benefited us, even though you weren't doing them perfectly from day one.
Which I hope is encouraging to everybody listening and
Right.
watching this, because it is a growing process. Education is about growth. That's why you learn to keep growing. And you don't have to do it perfectly. In fact, you never will do it perfectly. And now that you are homeschooling your own kids using Charlotte Mason methods, I'm assuming you're not doing it perfectly.
Definitely not. But doing the best I can. And I know for sure some things I took out of or took away from that education that you gave us are things like the love of learning and recognizing the value of living books and having the extra, so like the short lessons, getting most of your work done, to have some free time to pursue our own interests and develop skills. I'm so thankful for that now, because as a busy mom now, I'm recognizing how many things I'm able to do only because through my school years I had the freedom to develop and pursue these interests and skills that now I can lean on. Whereas if I had to learn from scratch right now, I would be at a big disadvantage because I can't put in time the way I could then.
Yes, yes. And I remember especially when you hit double digits, 10 and up, you would spend a lot of time in nature. You would do that in your own time. I mean, we did our own nature study, if you want to call it that, because I did not do a great job of leading that aspect of it. But even every day, you would be out in nature catching the little anole lizards and
Sneaking off into the woods.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that has shaped it a lot too, as well as the living books. I know that has done a lot, as you mentioned. And I think it has helped you in teaching your own children, because that is the direction that God led you after you graduated from my home school. But not every person is going to go in that direction.
Sure. Not every CM graduate is going to become a CM homeschooler.
Right, right. Well, like your two older sisters
Right.
are not homeschooling. They are not married, do not have families right now.
Right.
They are pursuing other things, but I still see components of what you talked about in their lives.
Right.
Some
That education supersedes specific paths, I think.
Yes.
We could say that
Yes.
it's something you carry with you into your life as an adult and shapes everything about whatever your vocation may be.
Yeah, you can call it a lifestyle in some respects, but you can also say that the ideas that you gained and even the methods of learning have informed any career choice. It informed who you are, basically, as you go into those other careers.
Yes, and those methods certainly cultivated a taste for CM principles. Even if I didn't know the principles, I could spot the counterfeits in different, programs or classes designed for my young kids.
Give me
And
an
I would-
example what you're talking about. What do you mean
Oh,
counterfeits?
Things like rewarding learning as opposed to learning the
For its
pursuit of
own
knowledge being its own reward.
Yes, yes.
And I was very uncomfortable with that, and I couldn't put it into words at first. Like, wait, this doesn't feel right. Why are we rewarding this when that's not the point?
So you would see that like in other educational settings, as it were, other programs you might be involved in, and you
Right.
notice that difference.
And I would be uncomfortable with that.
That's
but,
interesting.
I didn't always recognize at first what CM principle applied, but I just knew it didn't seem genuine, or any kind of situation where your kids are being given a multiple choice test, or even I as an adult encounter multiple choice things, and just feeling how maybe not inferior, but how much it's missing, how much it's not a reflection of knowledge and what you're actually learning, and being able to express that like in narration.
Yeah.
And I did not enjoy narration.
No, you didn't.
I really
Couldn't.
didn't, but I recognize the value of it.
Okay, I want you to say that again because a lot of moms need to hear that.
Okay, I did not enjoy narration. But I can see as an adult now how much that is a powerful tool for making that knowledge your own.
And do you require narration from your school-age kids?
I do. I'm maybe not as strict with it as I should be, but I also try to be creative about, because one thing that really bothered me was when you would read a passage and then say, okay, tell me, and I couldn't get over the fact that you heard it too, and so everything I'm saying is stuff you already know, and I knew that the point was to put it in my own words and everything, but I just couldn't get over the strangeness of telling somebody something that they literally just heard also. And so there are often times in our school where I won't require an immediate narration, but at the next mealtime I'll say, hey, let's tell Daddy everything that we learned in history today. And that's been a really natural way to get some narrations. I don't know if it bothers them as much as it bothered me, but that's what I do a lot of the time.
And you get good results
Yes.
from that.
Yes. It ends
Yeah.
up being a fun discussion, a fun way to share what we're learning with the whole family.
So this idea that you did not like narration, did that sour you to a Charlotte Mason education? And it's like, well, when you had your own kids, we're not going down that path. Thank you very much.
No, not at all. For me, I didn't even really consider pursuing other methods of homeschooling. I knew that that's what I wanted to do for my children. Maybe with
Did you have pressure
adaptations along the
because
way.
of my position
No.
and because your husband works for Simply Charlotte Mason? Was this pressure on
No,
you?
no pressure. You know me. I've always been
Yes, you have.
happy to follow my own path on
That's right.
things.
That's right.
But for me, this was an easy choice because of such a blessing it had been for me. And so, yeah, it almost wasn't a decision. Jordan and I knew we wanted to continue that for the next generation in our family. And I really appreciated being able to go into it, having had the experience as a student, because in a lot of ways it was less pressure to learn everything and do everything right. Because like we talked about, I'd already seen that it's effective even if you're not doing it perfectly. I had the familiarity with things like how to do a picture study, how to do music study, where I know if I was coming into it, I'd have to be doing a whole lot of studying and research, and
Yeah.
or for any method, learning how to do it all. But I had this at least passing familiarity with it from having experienced it. So it wasn't very intimidating. Well, I was very intimidated when it was time to start official school. I was trying not to hyperventilate, making the plan. I don't know why, but but once we got into it, I was not intimidated by all the different subjects, and because that's one thing I really loved was the wide variety of subjects, exploring those during
I often compare it to using eating utensils. That when you're first starting out, and you know this with your little ones, getting that spoon into the mouth is a hard
Level.
thing. Yeah, it's very hard, and you focus a lot on the spoon itself. But after you've practiced using the eating utensils, in our culture, knife, fork, and spoon, it could be chopsticks, it could be whatever. After you've practiced using those, pretty soon you don't even focus on them anymore. You focus on the meal itself.
Yes.
And that's
Not the delivery method.
Yes, because you already know about the delivery method. It's second nature to you now. And that's what I'm hearing you say, that as you grew up using those methods, they just became the delivery system, and you didn't even have to think about that anymore. You didn't focus on the spoon.
Right.
You focused on the meal itself.
Right. So that was a big help. On the flip side of that coin, I also found there were a few areas where I was coasting a little bit too much on my own memory and my own experience as a student being different from being the one in the teacher's chair. Narration was one of those areas where when it was time to start requiring narrations, I realized this is very, very different, being the one trying to get a narration versus give a narration. And I need to actually do some research. What are all the principles again? Because, you wouldn't sit there and tell us the principles.
Yeah,
when
now
you
notice I'm not
expected it.
interrupting you as you narrate.
Yes, thank you.
Things like that. You don't sit there and tell them. Yeah.
Right.
Those principles, yeah.
Yeah, or like dealing with incorrect information, or when the kid just doesn't say anything, or all
Right.
of those little things that I realized that our homeschool would benefit from me taking a little time to research and learn. So I've had to recognize times where it is of value for me to study these methods and implement them better, and not just rely on what I was familiar with already.
As you said, it's coming from a different perspective. As the student, you get familiar with the methods, yes. But yes, there is more to each method than what the student may realize, if the teacher's doing it right.
Right.
So what I'm hearing is the Charlotte Mason methods prepared you well for your calling in life, which is to be a homeschool teacher. And the way we used them in our home helped prepare you also. But they are also flexible enough for you to tweak and adjust and still get the effectiveness from them in your own home and family. We talked about how you tweaked the narration. Are there any other aspects of it that you have tweaked?
Oh, so many. I don't know that I could even name them all. And some of that, I think, just comes instinctively as you're seeing your child as a unique person, a whole person, and they're certainly not a copy of who you were as a child. Your new family doesn't match, the same
one you grew up
dynamics
in,
of the
yeah.
one you grew up in. And so a lot of it has just come naturally as we've focused on what each child needs, and have applied those methods. And it looks different from child to child, but the goals are always the same, the
Yes.
growth and the love of learning, and it's a really beautiful thing.
And I must say, just for all of those homeschool teachers and parents who are graduating their kids, don't throw away your living books. Because
Yes.
there is such a thing as Grandma's library.
Yes. I have a list of ones to borrow from you today, actually.
Okay, all right. We'll get those stacked up and ready to send home with you. That's great. Thanks so much for sharing from your experience. And it's been a joy to me to see how you take Charlotte Mason's methods and make them work in your specific home, that they are flexible enough for that, and yet they remain consistent at the same time. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's a real joy to watch you. You're doing a good job.
Well, thank you. It was a gift given to me, and now I can pass it on.
Yeah, I think, and I forget which volume it is, Charlotte writes about that it is twice blessed. The curriculum is twice blessed because it blesses those who give as well as those who receive.
Yes.
Yeah.
For sure.
Thanks. If you enjoyed this podcast, be sure to subscribe. Thanks for joining me. I'll see you next time.